Excellent. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar info session on Point of Pride's Electrolysis Support Fund. We have a couple dozen folks that are joining us through Zoom, through Instagram Live, and I know that folks live all over the place. So no matter what time it is where you are, we hope that you're having a great day so far, and we thank you in advance for your time and attention by joining us. My name is Jeff. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the executive director and co-founder of Point of Pride. Before stepping into the executive director role, I was the secretary of the board of directors, and I've been with the organization for well over a decade, helping lead our programs, cultivate donor relationships, and grow our partnerships. I have a background in marketing and web design. I live in Philadelphia with my family. Our preschooler just came home from school, so you might hear some voices and lunch preparation sounds in the background. We also have some cats at home. It's very likely one of them might make a cameo today.
Hi, my name is Tyler, he, him. I'm the director of programs with Point of Pride. I've been with the organization as an employee since, 22? And as a volunteer since 2017. Uh, Before coming to Point of Pride, my background was in health insurance, specifically pharmacy side. Those of you that have interacted with the programs before, you know me as the email guy. I would be your primary point of contact for the duration of the award period.
And not joining us today because she's under the weather. Tyler and I are also under the weather, but poor Abby is the sickest of us. Is Abby, our care coordinator. She lives in Houston, Texas. She joined the team earlier this year, and she has years of experience helping folks navigate the healthcare landscape. So recipients of this program would interact closely with Abby. While today's session focuses entirely on our electrolysis support fund, our organization offers financial aid and direct support through other programs that we wanted to quickly share with you just in case it's helpful. We offer an annual trans surgery fund, which is financial aid towards gender-affirming surgery. The HRT Access Fund provides financial aid towards gender-affirming hormone replacement therapy and telehealth access. The Thrive Fund provides financial support towards a variety of other types of care, things like wigs, prosthetics, fertility preservation, voice training, and much more. Point of Pride also mails out free chest binders and free femme shapewear undergarments to trans folks who need them entirely for free. And we've served thousands of people in all 50 states and 126 countries and counting. Each of the programs that I just went over has its own application process, timeline, and details, which you can learn more about on our website, www.pointofpride.org. So for today's agenda, first we're going to talk about the program. We're going to go over important dates. We're going to talk about what you can expect as an applicant, what our reviews process looks like, what you can expect if you are named a recipient of the program, and then we're going to end with a Q&A. There's no need to screenshot anything that I'm presenting. This deck and any links within it will be shared with you in an email following today's info session. And if a question comes up, there's no need to wait. Tyler will be monitoring the Q&A, so you can feel free to ask questions at any time, or you can save them for the Q&A at the end. About the Electrolysis Support Fund. This is a scholarship-like program that provides financial assistance towards permanent hair removal services, including electrolysis and laser hair removal for trans folks who cannot otherwise afford it. I'll pause here and mention that Tyler has just added a poll to the webinar. Please take a second, complete it. The program has awarded more than $684,000 since it first started in 2018. And with our current financial resources available, we anticipate awarding between 150 and 180 recipients in 2025. And before we go further, I just want to, make clear that access to healthcare is a right that every person, trans or cis, deserves. Unfortunately, with our current resources, the Electrolysis Support Fund is a competitive program. We're anticipating getting thousands of applications this coming cycle, which means we expect an award rate of just 7 to 12% of everyone who applies. So what are the requirements to apply? We require that you identify as trans, and we have a very broad definition of what that means. So if you identify as not cis, you are eligible. We require that you have financial need that prevents you from affording hair removal services, and we'll ask you to describe that financial need through short answer responses. We require that you are 18 years of age or older, or that you have consent from your parents as well as your hair removal providers. And we'll talk more about that in a second. If you are on the trans feminine spectrum, we require that you're seeking hair removal on your face, neck, or an area of your body in preparation for bottom surgery. If you are on the trans masculine spectrum, at this time, we require that you are seeking hair removal on an area of your body in preparation for bottom surgery and that you have a surgery date scheduled. I know there's at least one or two folks on today's call who are outside of the United States. So for international applicants, you are welcome to apply if you live outside of the United States. Functionally, this really looks like Canada or Mexico. That's because due to our nonprofit status, all hair removal services must be performed within the United States and its territories. So that means in order to apply, you have to be physically and financially able to travel to the United States for your care. At this time, our grants unfortunately cannot be applied towards things like travel, lodging, or other logistical expenses. You are eligible to apply regardless of your hair type, your skin tone, as well as any other hair removal products or services that you may have used in the past. You are eligible to apply regardless of employment, housing, disability, or immigration status. And you can apply regardless of whether or not you have health insurance. And with health insurance specifically, we do not have any requirements like that you need to have attempted coverage in the past, that you need to have received a denial letter, or anything like that. We recognize that most insurances consider hair removal to be cosmetic, even in circumstances in which it is a prerequisite for surgery. You can apply regardless of whether or not you are on hormone replacement therapy or taking any other steps in your transition. And you can apply regardless of whether or not you have received funding or support through any of Point of Pride's programs in the past. So, as I just mentioned, your eligibility to apply to this fund is not affected by whether or not you have insurance. However, if you do have insurance, we ask that you please consider if utilizing your insurance coverage is an option before you submit your application. We've heard some folks have had success having their hair removal covered by insurance, especially if your hair removal is a prerequisite for another covered type of care, like surgery. So this article is available on our blog. It'll be in the email that you'll receive at the conclusion of the info session, and it's a resource guide called How to Get Insurance Coverage for Gender Affirming Electrolysis. All right, so let's talk important dates. Applications will open on Monday, January 1st, and the final deadline to apply is the last day of February, Thursday, February 28th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Unfortunately, we will not be able to accept any applications after this date. When you apply, so whether you apply first thing in the morning on January 1st or late in the day on February 28th, that has no impact, positive or negative, on your likelihood of receiving funding. This is not a lottery-based program. So again, when you submit your application within that window does not impact your likelihood. All right, so let's talk about the applicant experience. For help as you navigate our entire application process, you have the option to list someone else on your application as a support person. The support person can be a friend, a chosen or blood family member, a counselor, a social worker. It can be anyone in your life who you feel will help you navigate this process and submit a high quality application. This person will be CC'd on all email notifications regarding your application status, and you can revoke access at any time simply by contacting us, sending us an email. Support people are also able to apply during the same application cycle. So you can be both an applicant towards your own hair removal expense needs, and you can be a support person to another applicant who's submitting their own application. If you're under the age of 18, the form will instruct you this, but you will be required to list your parent or legal guardian as your support person. Our application form will ask you for contact information, optional demographic information, information about your hair removal needs, and short answer responses in which you'll demonstrate your financial need. The form itself is hosted on a platform called JotForm. It's a secure HIPAA-compliant platform, and we also store your data following privacy best practices. More info about that can be found in the privacy policy of our website. So we have created something called an instruction packet. This is available on our site. We'll drop a link to it for y'all to review after today's info session. But what this is a thorough document that walks you through every question on our form and explains what our reviewers are hoping to understand about your unique needs. So we strongly recommend that you read through this, that you consider, or maybe even draft your written responses ahead of time. Many applicants and recipients in the past have told us it was really useful to write something ahead of time, review it, edit it before they submitted their application. And specific, thorough responses are key. So what I mean by that is your short answer response can be up to 800 characters, which is roughly 160 words. Our reviewers are looking for specific information. So don't worry about writing perfect answers, but we want to better understand the details of your unique financial situation, the barriers that you're facing in accessing healthcare or finding a hair removal provider, things like that. Your application is completely confidential and will only be shared with the specific reviewers that are reading your application. If you are selected as a recipient later, nothing that you include in your application will be shared publicly without your permission. Uh, Remember, this is not a test of writing skills, so grammar, spelling, or how well you write will not affect your application. Again, what we're really just looking for are those specific details to understand your unique circumstances. And if you do choose to use AI such as ChatGPT, we've noticed an increase in this across all of our programs. We simply ask that you do so as a tool to edit what you have already written, not create answers entirely. This is just because ChatGPT often creates really generic responses. It lacks that personal context that helps our reviewers understand you and your needs. So if our reviewers determine that they need any additional information from you throughout the application process, we'll contact you via email. You may be invited to submit additional written responses or participate in a brief phone or online interview. If you are selected as a recipient, we will contact you again via email or phone regarding next steps, and the full details of your award will be explained in your recipient agreement, which we'll talk about more in just a bit. Grant amounts for this program vary. So we award $1,250 to recipients who are on the trans-masculine spectrum and $2,000 to recipients who are on the trans-feminine spectrum. Your grant will be paid directly to your electrolysis or laser hair removal provider. And so just a quick note about this. We recognize that everyone's hair removal goals and needs are very different, which means that for some recipients, 1250 might not be enough money, might not be sufficient, right? So we already have a process in place called renewal awards that provide additional financial aid to recipients who need it. And we're hoping, this is to be finalized shortly, but we're hoping in 2025 that these grant totals may even increase even more. So please stay tuned for that. Regardless, you should be expected to cover travel fees to and from your sessions, as well as any pre or post-session medications or treatments that your providers might recommend or you might prefer, things like numbing cream or injections. If you are not selected as a recipient, we will notify you via email, and you are welcome to apply again during the next application cycle. This is an annual program, so we will be accepting applications again the following year. We do want to note this has happened in the past. We hope this will continue to happen. We will save your application for a full year. Sometimes we'll receive additional grants, resources, or opportunities that allow us to name additional recipients later in the year. If that is the case and funding opens up, we would contact you via email at that time. On our website, we have a full list of frequently asked questions, but we thought it would be helpful to just go over the couple that we get most often. So first, what are the age requirements? Our program requires that you are at least 18 years old. If you're under 18, we require consent from your parent or legal guardian, who, again, you will list as your support person on your application, as well as your hair removal providers. We have no upper limit on age. We have funded recipients that are well in their 70s and beyond. Are there any skin, hair, or health requirements? So while Point of Pride does not have requirements or limitations, we recognize that some providers may. It will be your responsibility to meet any requirements that are set forth by your preferred provider. Can the fund reimburse past hair removal expenses? Unfortunately, no. We understand the challenges of debt and medical loans that so many of us have had to navigate in order to get the care that we need. The way our program works, however, is that you must apply for financial aid towards future services. Our grants are paid directly to electrologists and providers before those services take place. Can I apply if I'm not sure whether I want laser or electrolysis? Yes, absolutely. You may still apply even if you're unsure which type is right for you. Grants are applicable if your provider recommends that you do both types of services, or you might start off doing one type of service and wish to switch to the other. That's not an issue and happens all the time. Can you help me find a provider? Unfortunately, no. Our team does not have the expertise or the ability to provide referrals or recommendations for trans-affirming providers at this time. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But one of the core principles we hold here is that ultimately you will be the best judge of who your provider should be. So we'll support you in reaching out to local LGBTQ centers, to trans support groups, as well as maybe your current healthcare providers or your insurance company, if applicable, so that you can get recommendations to help you as you research. We can also give you a list of providers in your area that we've worked with before. So maybe we've funded other recipients in your region to those providers. And this might be helpful because it will ensure that those providers at least are familiar with our organization and the way that we issue payments. So again, we can guide you on that research, but we really do feel that you'll be the best judge of who your provider should be. All right, so now we'll talk a little bit about what our reviews process looks like. So it's February 28th. Applications have closed. The first thing that our staff does, Tyler, is hides all identifying personal information, such as your name, your email address, and your phone number from your application. Your application then gets shuffled into a packet with 49 others that are ready for review. So again, that's why there's no advantage to you submitting your application earlier rather than later. We shuffle them all together pretty randomly to try to avoid any sort of bias. The packet then gets distributed to both our board of directors and our community grant-making fellows. Our fellows are specially trained grant-making volunteers, and all of them identify as trans. To minimize the impacts of unconscious bias, all of our reviewers follow a carefully constructed scoring rubric, and we all receive continuing education throughout the year. In addition, every application, so your application, will be reviewed by at least two different reviewers. In some cycles, this has looked like three reviewers. And we are all reviewing each and every application based on need and impact. And so this process takes time. Again, I think we're going to get several thousand applications this cycle. Historically, certainly, we have seen that volume, which means that it will take somewhere between 4 and 12 weeks from the end of the application window for all our reviewers to review all the applications and select recipients. Again, we're expecting somewhere between a 7 and 12% award rate. This is unfortunately a very competitive process. You will hear from Point of Pride via email regarding your application status at some point in that 4 to 12 week window. We recommend checking your spam filter if you're not getting messages from us, or something that you can do after today's info session is you can add pointofpride.org to your safe senders list, and this will make sure that you don't miss any future messages from us. And now we'll go over what you can expect if you are named a recipient of the program. So if you are awarded funding through the fund, you will get an email from us that contains a grant agreement. This explains the full details of your award. In that agreement, it will list your grant award amount. So again, grants are $1,250 for folks on the masculine spectrum and $2,000 for folks on the feminine spectrum. Your grant agreement will also go over the timeline. It will tell you that you have a window of 18 months to utilize these funds with your chosen service provider. The email will also ask you to complete a couple additional forms. The first is a HIPAA disclosure. So this names Tyler, Abby, and myself as points of contact that can speak to your provider's office on your behalf. We do this strictly to fulfill payments. We don't ask for or want personal information, medical information, anything like that. We'll ask you to complete a support person disclosure. So for folks that chose to name a support person during the application process, this is just a spot for you to confirm you're still comfortable with that person being included in future correspondence about your grant award or payments or things like that. You can remove or change your support person at this time. We'll ask you to complete a partner authorization form. So what this is that Point of Pride builds partnerships with other nonprofits that help the trans community in accessing healthcare, nonprofits that offer things that we don't, things like post-operative nursing services or free flights within the United States to access healthcare. So we, again, don't provide this, but we can refer you to these trusted partner organizations if those services are of interest to you in your healthcare journey. So only in the event that you opt in and you would like to learn more, would we ever share your personal contact information with a third party. And then lastly, we'll ask you to complete a media disclosure. You can see a screenshot of what this looks like. It's tiny on the right-hand side of this slide. But what this is an opportunity for you to tell us exactly how you want your name, photos, and other information to be shared publicly. And for your privacy and security, you can remain as anonymous as you would like to be. And so to elaborate on that a bit more, if you follow us on social media or if you've poked around our website, you might have seen these public-facing announcements from past recipients of our financial aid programs. And so if you are named a recipient of this program, you will have complete control over your narrative, including whether or not you want to use your name, your photo, or any other identifying or personal details within your recipient bio. And so just to speak a little bit more on this, we encourage recipients to write stories in a way that feels affirming and safe. This means that many recipients choose not to disclose the perhaps personal or even traumatic details that you might share in your original application. So you might tell us about disability status, health or mental health status, immigration, experiences of violence or discrimination. There are so many mainstream stories that focus on the hardship we endure that we believe allowing you to have complete control over your story here can help foster trans joy. So you'll see in the right-hand side of this slide, some of our recipients use their photo, some choose to have it blurred. In some instances, we'll use stock photos that represent the recipient's ethnicity origin. I'd invite you all to read through our website so you can see some examples. And again, nothing ever gets published without your permission. So before we go into the Q&A, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. When you leave today's info session, you're going to see a link to a quick feedback form. Please take a minute and fill that out. Let us know your thoughts. We appreciate it. If you ever need to connect with us, if you have questions following today's info session, you can reach out to us at electrolysis@pointofpride.org, or you can connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. You can also visit our website, www.pointofpride.org. All right, so we're going to go into our Q&A. I see that Tyler has been busy answering some questions y'all have submitted during the session. And there were also some questions y'all submitted at the time that you registered for today's webinar that I'm going to just go over right now just to make sure everything is answered. So one attendee asks, is this grant for both face and bottom surgery preparation, or is it one or the other? So for folks that are on the masculine spectrum who are seeking hair removal, the grant will only cover surgery prep. So it has to be on an area of your body in preparation for bottom surgery. For femme folks, there's no limitation. It can be used for both. Another attendee asks if transportation is available. Unfortunately, no, at this time. You would be required to figure out and pay for the logistics of travel to and from your sessions. Someone asks if this covers only electrolysis. So no, this grant covers electrolysis, laser hair removal, or a combination of the two. And we recognize, this happens all the time, that recipients might start out with one type of treatment. Their provider might recommend switching, or they might prefer to switch. And so the grant is flexible in that way. All right, so a few attendees actually asked questions about hair removal itself, like whether it's effective for folks that have red hair or how long the treatments might take to achieve certain results. So in those cases, we would say your provider is going to be the one that can answer that. They're going to be able to examine your hair type, your hair color, your skin type and tone, and determine which method of hair removal might work best. They'll be able to tell you an estimate of how many sessions you might expect before you start seeing results. Broadly, for the folks that asked about red hair, broadly, most providers we've spoken to recommend electrolysis for light and red hair because laser relies on contrast between hair color and skin color. We do have a blog on our website. It's called Electrolysis versus Laser Hair Removal, which is right for you. That can start to get those to get some more information in your hands. But again, your provider is going to be the one that can give you a consultation and get you the best information. And then relatedly, several of you asked questions about bottom surgery and electrolysis specifically for bottom surgery. Unfortunately, because Tyler and myself are not medical professionals, we can't really answer specific questions. Your healthcare provider, your surgeon's office, they're going to be the ones that can really set you up for success and answer your specific questions. Um, but I do also just want to stress that this fund is just for prerequisite electrolysis or laser hair removal. It's not for surgical funding itself. We have a different program for that called the Annual Trans Surgery Fund, where we issue scholarship-like assistance towards surgery procedures. This is just for the hair removal portion of that. Thank you, attendee who pointed out January 1st is a Wednesday. So it is a Wednesday. January 1st is when our applications will open. I will make a note to figure out what day and year it is in the meantime. So thank you. Another attendee asks if funding can be applied retroactively. In this instance, using a credit card. You mentioned you were using a credit card and you're hoping to pay off debt. Unfortunately, as you might have seen in the presentation, our grant is structured to pay for future expenses. So if this is ongoing hair removal, we would certainly invite you to submit an application. Um, I'd also urge you to note in your short answer responses that, that our form will ask you to share whether or not you've already received hair removal and describe that a bit. That'll be your opportunity to tell us that you have incurred credit card debt to be able to get this care. It just, again, helps our reviewers understand your financial need, your financial barriers, and assess your application a little better. So a couple of these that I'm going to read now, Tyler has already answered, but I thought it would be helpful just for the larger group to hear. So another attendee asks, what if I have had bottom surgery and I still need electrolysis post phalloplasty? So we've actually never funded someone in that specific situation prior, but we would certainly welcome you to apply and explain your situation. Um, yeah, great question. Thank you. Someone asks, if I've had hair removal services in the past, does that help or hurt my chances of funding? And the answer to that is neither. Um, like I just shared when answering another attendee's question, we really just want to gather as much information about your specific situation as possible. So that's why we ask that question, so you can just give us more context. So I see someone asked a question about this program perhaps becoming accessible to international individuals, so folks that are living outside of the US and cannot travel to the US for care. Um, Candidly, this is something that we really do want to explore in the future, but it's just not on the roadmap for this coming year. We have There are so many logistical considerations to work through to allow us to be able to fund people outside of the United States, in part due to our 501(c)(3) nonprofit status, and in part because something that I typically share in these settings, but I haven't yet, is that we are an incredibly small team. Up until 2023, we were entirely volunteer operated. As of right now, we are a staff of 4.5. And so while we certainly do want to expand our ability to support people all around the world, and that is a long-term goal of ours, it's not something that I see happening in the coming year. All right, I think we're caught up on Q&A. I'll just allow a couple more minutes for folks that might have other questions. Okay, someone asks, should we have a provider before applying? So great question. If you are already working with a provider, or if you know who you would want to work with if you were awarded funding, you'll have the ability to put that information in your application. but most of our applicants do not have a provider identified at the time that they're applying. So it does not help or hurt your likelihood of receiving funding. Again, it's just like really helpful information um, that you can include so that our reviewers get a good sense of your whole situation. Um, I see another question about gray hair and whether laser hair removal or electrolysis might be preferred. Again, we'd strongly recommend that you reach out for a consultation with a provider so that they can actually examine your hair type, your skin type, and give you the best recommendation for which type of hair removal is right for you. For the folks saying thank you. Really appreciate your time, your attention, your engagement today. I'm not seeing any more open questions, so I'll just say thank you again and remind y'all that if you do need to reach us, if another question comes up as you leave today's info session, please shoot us an email. We'd be happy to answer you. I will mention though, our organization will be slower to respond between Christmas Day on the 25th and New Year's on the 1st. So please just allow a little bit of extra time for us to get back to you. And again, when you leave today's info session, you're going to see a link to that quick feedback form. Thank you in advance for taking a couple minutes and filling that out. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day and a happy and healthy holiday season. Thanks, everybody.